I got one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Humility receives scant praise or training in our culture. We live in a breeding ground for egomania. I didn't really understand my father's humility. While I will proudly proclaim to strangers the shallowest of my accomplishments, my father would not. On the trail, my father spoke with humility about his climbing. He would say it was out of necessity. It's impossible not to be humble when you're struggling as much as we did. Realistically, few people pushing 60 would climb a 14,000-foot mountain, or want to for that matter. But his humility clearly extended beyond the mountain. Now, one of the pieces that I think is characterized by your life is humility. And in one sense, I mean, you were the catalyst for spiritual formation in the evangelical world.
Well.
And no, just take it.
No, I can take it. I mean, I've doubled my humility this year, so.
Can you I'll just stop. Give us tell us about humility. How have you done that? How have you?
Yes. On to the next question. We're going to talk about it. I've got to tell you. I'm reading one for you. I'm going to tell you this. Okay. Here's a sign. Here's the sign.
He's so humble he won't talk about it.
I don't know.
You're not impressed with yourself, right? Or are you?
No.
I'll leave it.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know, a real look at yourself takes all of that stuff away.
Yes.
Jesus, you know, the disciples were with Jesus for what was essentially a 3-year camping trip, and they still thought he was the Son of God at the end. Now, for most of us, a couple of days, that's all it would take.
Illusions are gone.
They're all gone. Now, here's a fun little passage, and then maybe we should entertain a question or two.
Okay, we can do that.
A fun passage. When Nathan in his growing up years, and that sort of my role and so on, he would try to distance himself from
I do more than try to distance.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And so he would tell his friends at school that I was a lumberjack. And he's some guy that was a buddy of yours at school. Years later.
It was a girl.
Oh, a girl, okay.
She's looking me up.
Goes to one of the conferences where I speak. And so then she writes to our office and says, after attending a Renovaré conference, I was wondering if Richard has a son named Nathan who attended Northwest High School in Wichita, Kansas. If so, could you give Nathan my contact information? He always said his father was a lumberjack, so I'm not sure I have the right person. And then Nathan, we were living in Kansas at this time, Nathan has this comment. I had thought that a Kansas lumberjack was a hard sell. Apparently not. So my Paul Bunyan skills.
You don't know this, but I'll tell you.
Okay.
We went to this church when I was a kid. It was kind of a hippie church. It started the Church of Savior.
Oh, yeah,
It's kind of Jesus movement church.
Yeah, Jesus.
And after the church at the end, they'd give a time for people to get up and share. It was kind of a good Quaker. It wasn't a Quaker church, good Quaker thing. And I remember, do you remember this? People would come and they'd say something, and something that was on their heart or whatnot. I was just a little kid, and I said, Dad, I got something. Well, they were already done, and they were starting to play the music, or whatever. And he stopped them and said, "Nate, my son got something." And I remember I got up on his shoulders, and I said, "I just want you to know that one day I'm going to write a book, a little book, but I'm going to write a book." And I mean, I think for me, that story always felt kind of silly. Like, my dad's a firefighter. I want to be a firefighter. But it always hung with me. And so I just wanted one book. I didn't want more. I just wanted to write one book. So that had been in the back of my mind, Autumn, the whole time. And then the doors just opened up as a joke, really, where so it was right there, and I knew this. I'd been waiting for my topic, and then I thought, this is it. This is the topic.
And that particular church, I mean, it was a ragtag group, you know, that would rank as a marginal failure on the ecclesiastical scoreboards. And yet, they would take a statement like that seriously.
Yes.
And value you for saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Just a wonderful group of people.
Mm-hmm.
They really were church in a good sense. Yeah. Good question. Is there another?
Good question.
No, hold on. Let's let him go.
Let somebody else get it.
What caused you to write your book on discipline?
Oh my, the question about writing celebration of discipline. Well, we were with a group of people, you know, the scripture about, in the Old Testament, about the wicked in Isaiah. The wicked being like the waves of the sea, wash up mire and dirt. Well, see, the wicked, it's just the natural motions of life to produce mire and dirt. They don't have to do anything special. And we were with it was really a wonderful group of people, small little group of folk. But that's what I saw, that the ingrained habit patterns of their lives produced mire and dirt. There was one guy especially, he could just walk down the street and attract trouble. So, I mean, I had given them everything I'd learned in seminary in the first 3 months, and it didn't do them any good. And I figured I got to learn a little bit more, go a little deeper. And we begin then to teach and to think about the disciplines of the spiritual life as a way of presenting this little individualized power pack, the human body, and place it before God as a living sacrifice, as Paul writes. Remember that passage? But of course, the problem with living sacrifices is that they're always trying to crawl off the altar. So that's why it takes a lifetime to be offered. So we began working with that, and working with that, and working with people, and teaching on that. And my friend Dallas did a lot of teaching. And then years later, when I was in a different context where I could process what we'd learned in those early years, I felt maybe we had something that could be helpful. So, again, it was a little bit like your situation. Opportunity came, and it was one of those things where fools rush in where angels fear to tread. I went to Harper's, who they don't take unpublished authors, but I laid an idea out, and they took it. Then I wrote it. So that's how that came about. Yeah, good question.
One more question.
One more. Okay, over here. Oh, I'm sorry.
Nathan, you asked your dad about his humility, and he dodged that question.
He
but
did. Isn't that,
it's such a wonderful book, and I was a bigger flake than you were growing up, but here you had a somewhat of a checkered background growing up. So how is it that your book turns out to have such wisdom and depth?
Now, but say it humbly.
That's right.
Let me tell you why I'm very wise. And witty. I mean, my first answer is an accident. And I think that the idea that I have is that if we shut up and move out of the way, that God shows up and cool things happen. And I think that that's with the book that. And we do our work, the glue business, you just kind of press through. So if you find helpful things in there, I think that's where I'd go with it.
And listen. Nathan is a wonderful listener. Not just to listener to people's hearts. Not just what they say, but the feeling tones, the life experience. That's why he was such an able counselor when you had the counseling center. Well, Brian?
Do you want to wrap it up?
I just,
Oh, yeah.
real quick,
Sorry.
I wanted to just thank you guys for coming. It means a lot to me. I see a lot of my friends out here. And Christy and I are in such a supportive community. And so I really, really appreciate the way people have come around me and the book. It means a lot. And then Dad, thanks for coming. I appreciate that. And my mom is here, and my beautiful wife, Christy. Did Kai fall asleep?
He did.
I
This
bored
is
him.
a miracle.
And my daughter, who asked when I told her to come, she says, you're bringing a book. A lot of books, actually. So he's going to read it. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for coming. And I wanted to point one just little piece of the book that someone said to me that was so good. And, okay, so the book is about relationships, and I hope that you get the idea through the end of the book to go and pursue relationships. And I realized that there are many people who cannot, for one reason or another, cannot have relationships with their parents, shouldn't have relationships with their parents. And I don't want the book to be salt in those wounds, but rather to ask the question of where does the community fit into that? And then to ask you, does anyone want to be a father or a mother? Does anyone want to be a daughter or a son? I mean, can we as a community pull that together? And the conclusion I reach in the book is that there's nothing more significant we'll do on earth than developing and cultivating relationships. And here's my story of getting the opportunity to do that. So you go have your story, son. But thank you for coming.
And Nathan pulls that together so well in his last chapter. But to get that, Jim, you'll have to buy the book.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. I'm sorry that I'm so serious. I'll try to get a sense of humor. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. Nathan's book is for sale back there. Father's Day is coming up. It's a great gift. It's gotten wonderful reviews. We love it in the theology department. Many others who have read it have really enjoyed it. So I can't plug it enough. Go out there. If you had a question and you didn't get a chance to ask it, buy a book. Nathan will be signing them there just off to the side. And then we have some snacks, some drinks, and some wraps for you to just enjoy some fellowship and conversation. Thank you again for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
Can we thank Val?
Yes. I mean, this program would not have been put together if it were not for the hard work that Val Head, the coordinator of the Master of Arts in Spiritual Formation, put into it. So can we give her a round of applause, please?